Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Route podcast. I'm your host, Shane Johnson, and with us today, really what I can say is a friend of mine, but you all know him, Jason Anderson from United Bus and Envision Transportation. So welcome this morning, Jason. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Shane.
All right. So why don't you just maybe do a quick intro for our listeners today, introduce yourself and your roles, responsibilities, and the hats that you wear.
Yeah, I wear a couple hats. Thanks for bringing that up. But my primary, I'd say faith, family, and focus are my big three.
Okay.
And anybody that knows me or is close with me knows that's my attention. Within my hats for work, Director of Business Development for Vision, and try to help them with their recruiting team. And as United has grown, my time from operations is continue to pull back. And then I'm president and run the day-to-day for United. So that keeps me
keeps you busy. Keeps you busy. Before we, and I want to tap into that a little bit with you and be able to share some more for our listeners. But outside of work, obviously you said your faith is very important to you, and I know that, and your family. So within that, what do you like to do when you're not wearing the United Bus sales sweatshirt?
I usually wear it anyway. but in all seriousness, my family's big into fishing.
Okay.
And so we spend a lot of time with that. Our boys are on the bass team. We have twin boys, and so we have two in the house and two that have launched into the world.
Okay.
So we're halfway in the middle.
Halfway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our house went from really loud to now it's kind of loud.
That's great. I love that. And just want to share this too. You and we just attended the NSTA conference in Maui, and you and I had an opportunity to do some hog hunting, and
Oh man,
that was awesome. Thank you again for that experience. It was great. I don't want to say we were unsuccessful because it's hunting, right? And
Right.
like fishing, sometimes you just don't get it, but the dogs found them, and we had that rush of adrenaline, but it was fun. It's just the experience. I'll always have that you and I were able to share that together, and again, appreciate that. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's just part of the relationships, right? And that's the thing that I love about fishing and hunting, and that time with my family. It's you're visiting and you're experiencing those things, and you're outdoors where I like to be.
Yeah.
That was special.
It was.
For those that just I can give you a little bit of perspective. What we were walking on, we weren't expecting to be walking on.
No.
And we were in this valley, and there was hogs coming on the right, and there's hogs coming on the left, and we could hear them breathing.
Yeah.
But the dogs weren't patient enough.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think one of us would have stuck.
We would have got it. But it was like I said, it was fun, and it was a rush, and it was a great time. So
Yeah.
Getting back to that then too. So with United and Vision, like I said, kind of wear two hats. Do you wear one hat a little bit more than the other? Do you see yourself staying in both roles? And if you can't answer something with that second piece, I understand that. But how does that work, and where do you see it going?
The back end. So to back up a little bit, from 2007 when I started in the industry, it was at the dealership level, and then at 2017, I switched from Hoglund Bus Company and went to work for Vision Transportation. So United hadn't been created at that point. So I was solely Vision. And I was also working with our body shop. And then as we created United and then that started to grow, then time has to be divided up. Right now, my time is really spent with Vision on the recruiting. I like to have meetings where we don't know. This is like a national issue that you talked about.
Yep.
And all of us talk about it, and whoever's listening is probably thinking about it. But so I enjoy that, trying to figure things out and how to make it better.
Yeah.
And find drivers.
Yeah, find drivers. And just off camera to my left, to your right, Kathy Anderson standing here. She knows all about recruiting, and she's our southern recruiter here for Palmer Bus Service. And it's a lot of work going out there, and because you're looking for a very small percentage of people that, one, are interested, and then two, that are qualified. And it's a small number of people. So it's a lot of work. It's hard work, rewarding work. I think when you find those folks that say yes to wanting to, again, to do the work and get the license and transport kids. So at the end of the day, it's very rewarding, I would assume.
Yeah. We ring a bell. They're supposed to. I'm not in the same office, but we're supposed to ring a bell every time we get a new driver. And there's an email that goes out to all the location managers and the management that we've got a new driver every time they pass. We've added the having our own tester.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
so I don't know if some people know that or
The
don't,
third-party
but
tester.
yeah,
Good for you guys. Yeah.
and that really has helped
That helps a lot.
speed it
Yeah.
up.
Versus waiting, yeah, sometimes 30, 60, 75 days for the state to get somebody in to take the test. You can lose a lot of people in that
It's
period
too
of
long.
time. On the vision side then too, like what districts do you guys currently serve here in Minnesota?
Yeah, great question. The Elk River ISD
Okay.
and Big Lake ISD, and then Albertville St. Michael
Okay.
ISD.
It's about a number of employees.
I think it's over 300.
Okay. You're busy.
Yeah, probably closer to 330.
Okay.
Something in there. With drivers, you have part-time staff, but we have over 200 big buses and about 70 vans.
Okay.
Somewhere right in there.
Enough to keep you busy then. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. With that too, and I do want to talk about this for a second because it's important. You've had the privilege to work really with a legend in the industry here in Minnesota, and you still have that opportunity, Wayne Hoglund. I just want to ask, through all the years, what's maybe kind of what it's been like? A lot of wisdom there, a lot of knowledge there that I'm sure you've been able to get and take from Wayne, and maybe something that he shared with you, one or two things that just made you want a better person in life, better maybe salesman of all of that. So what's it been like to be able to work with Wayne all these years?
Oh, Wayne and Lisa and their family have changed my life.
Yeah.
So I think the key lesson in that is the investment that they made in Marissa and I.
Okay.
And that makes a huge difference in our life, and then we can make differences in other people's lives. I think they could have been a lot more profitable if they were a cutthroat business, but that's not who they are.
Right.
And that's another lesson. Relationships matter. And people matter.
Yeah.
And profit is a product of those things, not the focus of those things.
Right.
So I was a bill collector before I got into buses in 07, and I shared that with you, but I don't know if other people know that. And the whole reason I found Hoglund and Wayne and Lisa was because of traffic.
Okay.
I didn't want to commute to the cities.
Right.
From something as basic as I used to smoke a pack and a half of cigarettes a day. And Wayne's, you got to quit that.
Yeah.
And that's not good for you. Just pointing out the obvious. And I still smell one and they're still good, but I don't smoke anymore.
Right.
So
yeah,
just from something so basic to investing time in my life. And he comes by I felt bad because United had grown so much that we needed extra office space, and he gave up his office space and then moved his office back to Monticello.
Okay.
And I'm like, that was one of the worst things because I didn't get to see him every day after that. But he still comes over every couple weeks. And
he's a great guy, salt of the earth. Yeah, if anybody that knows Wayne, there's never anything negative to ever say. He's just so positive, been so helpful, again, just to the industry overall. Yeah, and you've had the privilege to be there for years with him. So
yeah. And I call him my mentor because he is. And I asked him to mentor me because I could see the value that he had to the industry rather than having a different type of relationship. And he's taken me under his wing, and I'm forever grateful for that.
And that just says something, I think, too, really about our industry. It is about relationships. And not even just at a local level. There's just cross state lines here too. And I know you guys are now part of NSTA, and you're able to, again, to go to the winter conference in Maui. And so maybe just talking about that, what was your takeaway really going to your first NSTA event? And, what maybe had the biggest impact on you from the conference?
In comparison, we're a little operations to some of the operators that were there. But I think the biggest thing that I took away from it is they're experiencing the same things we are.
Right.
It's just scope and scale. That was more reassuring than anything. And bouncing ideas off other people is, anytime you attend a conference or a trade show or something like that, I'm always trying to, what's a new relationship or two that we can get, and what's one or two ideas we can take back to the business and implement it.
Yeah.
And I got all of that.
Yeah.
So that I'm gonna be going to the Capitol with you. The
DC bus in?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And I'm in.
Yeah.
So
it's great. And again, it's that relationship part like you're talking about. And it's scope and scale might be a little bit different, like you said, but everybody's experiencing, the same issues, having the same complications. I joke, it's not a joke, it's real. You might have a site, say they have 4 routes and they're missing one driver. That's 25%.
That's big.
That's a big
Yeah.
number for routes. And then, but say for us, like a site like Shakopee might be missing one driver one morning. It's not even a sneeze.
They're cheering.
Yeah. So again, it's just that it's all relative to what it is. But no, I was really glad you guys became a member of NSTA. And I think I had a little bit to do with that, just like you had a little bit to do with me getting in the MSBOA and where I sit with that. So it was a great trade, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you've been at it since about 07, you said. What, maybe a couple changes, like we've all seen a lot, right? But, you know, from your seat, like what's been a couple like just wow factors? Like back in 07, I didn't ever think I would see this, or maybe I never thought this would be an issue in our industry. A couple takeaways.
Yeah, the emissions and that have come have kind of, I couldn't have imagined like the differences that some of the air that is coming out of the back of a tailpipe and the buses in Minneapolis is cleaner than what's going in the engine.
Right.
Like, how is that possible?
Right.
That's been a wow kind of thing. And there's been a lot of change in our industry. There's been some tragedy, and there's been changing of dealerships and other things like that where some truck people are now involved in the bus world, and where before it was just bus people in the bus world. And so I think that's changing. And buses usually 10 or so years behind truck.
Yes.
So
I think you're being kind saying 10 years too.
I was maybe 15 is what I wrote in my notes, but no, but that's not all negative, right? It's just,
that's what it is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They put 300 some thousand trucks on the road. We put 13,000 buses on the road. There's a difference.
That's where it's going to get time and attention, is on that side.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, I agree with all those too, Jason. And I think looking back to where we're at today, I've said this a couple times already, I think just the advance in technology, going again to your point of we've always been behind on that piece. And I think the school bus world has really caught up, and the technology is just, it's advancing every single day. You got the different vendors out there, whether it be Zonar or TransFinder, Tyler Technologies, whoever it might be, First Light. Lots of those folks are just, it's every time you turn around, like the following month, they have something new to be able to add, which is a good thing. It might not work for you, but it works for somebody else. But yeah, the technology is just, it's amazing to me.
You can relate to the video systems. Now we have computers on the bus.
Yeah, it is. It's who would have ever thought. And I think one that I personally like, and we're empty nesters now. Our kids are out they're adulting now, as they call it. And they found out adulting is very hard. And sometimes they call and want to move back. No, there's no backs. But I would have really loved the one technology was with TransFinder. Within the umbrella of that, they have a product called Service Finder.
Right.
And you can, Stop Finder, that you can see in real time, like where the bus is at. And you get an alert like, hey, the bus is 5 blocks away. And it's a simple app. And like when we talk to people, it's, hey, call Domino's and you order a pizza. You can see your pizza from, hey, it's going into the oven, it's out for delivery. Don't you want to know where your kid's at or where your kid's bus is at? So it's a great app. It's wonderful to have. Hopefully districts continue to pick that up and utilize that. But again, just the technology piece it's pretty nice as a parent to be able to see that.
We just added it in Big Lake.
Yeah.
My wife's sitting in her chair having her morning coffee and be like, get out there.
Yeah, the bus is coming. Yeah. So,
and I'm like, hey, come on, we're in the bus business. We can't be late for the bus.
It's so funny you say that. I remember I was in 9th grade, lived in Brooklyn Center, and I went to Robbinsdale Cooper. Anybody that knows that area knows it's quite a ways. One morning I missed the bus and I walked back to the house. I told my dad, I go, hey, I missed the bus. And I remember he looked down at me and goes, I hope those shoes are comfortable. You better get moving. I think I showed up at school at 10 o'clock. That's how far the walk was. And I might have dilly-dallied a little on the way, but I never missed the bus after that. Yes. Would have been nice to have that
there wasn't an app telling us to go out at the front door. It was like, your stop's at 7:01. Like,
you better get moving.
You better be there at 6:50.
But so for me, it's a technology piece. But how about from your side, on the sales side, United Bus, finding buses? What can you tell our listeners that we're getting into that season now where they're looking at, hey, what do I need to bring on next year? What can you share with us from that maybe that inventory side, what sales looking, what do we need to be ready for this summer?
The best advice I can give is to give whoever you want to work with the most time that you can give them. because back before 20, you used to be able to order a new bus and have it in 90 days.
Yeah.
And if they were slow or pokey, it was 120.
Those days are gone.
Those days are gone. And I don't think that the manufacturers want that because it was such spikes and valleys. I think they want a more streamlined order, which is changing our industry because you and I, so on my vision hat, we don't want anything until June after summer or after school's out.
Right.
And we have to have it ready by the end of August, or now the middle of August. So now the timing is backed out a year to year and a half. And I got about 115 buses sitting on the lot right now that I bought last year that I was just getting so that we would have equipment that people want coming into summer.
Into summer.
Yeah, and we have a couple other batches that are coming, but as you and I know, that some of them come on time and some of them don't.
Right.
Recently, a big manufacturer had a shortage of Cummins engines, so they had to push out their production, and they'll be in the fall instead of spring.
Right. So sooner the better is what you're telling folks. Hey, if you're going to need some buses, the sooner you get myself or my staff, your wants and needs, the better. So you start the search.
Yeah, and that helps us because then we can ping back that, hey, we found this. What do you think about this? And the prices are better when you buy early in the cycle.
Okay.
And when you buy late in the cycle, the prices are higher.
Supply and demand.
It's part of that, but part of it that people might not know is the interest rates back in 2020 were 4.5%. Now they're 8.25 or 8.75.
Yeah.
And you do that on $100,000 unit, you got thousands of dollars of interest that we're gonna add on.
Yeah. That's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up because that's a key factor, probably one that's often overlooked on this side of things. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. How about type A availability? I think we all are experiencing more and more students that need that specialized transportation, needing those littler buses. Obviously, type A's fit a lot of models for companies. What are you seeing or hearing on the type A?
That's even harder than the big buses.
Okay. Didn't want to hear that.
No, sorry. But to give you an example, the manufacturers had an allotment from Chevy and Ford. Then they came to their dealers and they gave them an allotment. And if anything freed up, we would just buy it and then figure out what we were going to build on it. But there's such a shortage. I think the cutaway industry is 5,000-6,000 units on back order. And Ford's caught up, but as on the school bus side of things, Chevy is preferred in what most people have in their fleet.
Right.
Recently, Chevy's got an axle shortage of some sort. And so if we don't have a VIN number right now, we're not going to get one till fall. A body's not going on that bus until first quarter or fourth quarter at best.
So is some of this, Jason, is this still residual effect from COVID, or where is that lack of part supply coming from?
Yeah, I think part of it is that.
Okay.
And then the other part of it is Chevy and Ford's ability to build enough vehicles for what the industry wanted. So they ran behind because of parts.
Okay.
And so that now they're trying to get caught up. And when they have a model year that's about to cut off, then they just say, thanks for the order, but we need to move it.
We're moving.
So now it would move from a 25 Chevy to a 26 Chevy.
Okay.
And so it's just tough. It's tough sledding. So the best advice on that is plan even further ahead.
Right.
And it's opposite of the way that it used to be.
Yeah. It is much different. Yeah. And I do remember the days too where you could order a new bus and 90, 120 days later it was on the lot for you. And those days are way past. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes it, it does make it difficult when you're trying to obviously plan to get ready to go back to school and knowing that, hey, I almost got to order this bus a year ahead, if not a little bit more before that, before you'll see it and have it ready. So, yeah.
So the biggest thing I think is what we've seen is when somebody's trying to grow, like if it's a school district and they're adding routes, or if it's a contractor and they're adding new work, like those are the really hard situations when it's fleet replacement. What I've seen you do and others have done have been really smart and said, I'm going to hold on to my trade until I get that
Right.
newer used bus in, and then you're not out. Growth versus fleet replacement, I think you can handle two different ways. So
Yeah, it's a little bit of a shell game that's being played a little bit for sure. Yeah, got to make sure you're putting yourself in a good spot that no matter what, come September or
Right.
maybe middle August, depending on your school district, that you're ready to roll and you have enough units on the ground to do that. Yeah. So, how about electrification? Thoughts, opinions on that? I ask most of our guests this question. I'm just always curious to see people's thoughts, ideas, opinions. What do you think? Obviously, we're in Minnesota, cold weather state, but not sure on the sales side, if you guys have sold any. What's the market for it that you're seeing?
I'll start with the operation answer. Then we applied for grants, and like I think what happened to you, we received a fraction of an offer for part of a vehicle,
Yeah.
and we're not going to add that infrastructure
Right.
at a detriment to the districts that
Right.
we serve. We didn't do it. There's people
So
who
you turned down the grant like we did.
yeah.
Yep.
There is people who received the infrastructure, but an example for United, we had electric buses on order for people, and we reached out to our local company to get a different transformer for the building, and we were going to update some plugins.
Right.
And they said that's 2 years out.
Oof.
We've been growing a lot, so we figured we weren't sure if we were going to move or not at that time. So why would we make an investment that's 2 years away that can't help us now with the
Right.
technology? So we waited,
Right.
and we're adding it to our new facility that we're building right now.
Okay.
And we've sold some, but we've also have had some situations that haven't gone according to plan.
Right.
So
Yeah. I've heard of plenty of those. Right. Yeah. How about what are your? Obviously, we have a new administration in Washington D.C.
yeah,
A lot of buzz, we all know. And obviously, there's some agencies within the administration that have a direct impact on our world. Obviously, the EPA. There's another one, a new one now called DOGE, that's going in with a sledgehammer and an axe, I guess we could all say. And
a good analogy.
yeah, finding misuse of taxpayer dollars. I'll just say that. And obviously, I think a lot of talk is what's going to happen with the Clean School Bus Act and the funding dollars that go to that. And I did hear someone else that has a pretty loud voice in our industry say this, actually it was a few days ago, so it'll be several weeks by the time this podcast drops, that what are the manufacturers going to do? What are the OEMs going to do? Say if these dollars do get turned off, would your crystal ball, nobody's going to say what Jason said or anything, but do you see the OEMs stopping? Like, because I don't know anyone that's going to buy this bus. Like you're talking with the dollars that it is, not including infrastructure yet. What happens with a lot of work's been done to these plants to make an electric school bus? And I don't know, crystal ball thoughts?
There's some states that are running quite a few of them and have made quite an investment in them.
Yeah.
And I think for Minnesota, until the cold weather issue with the batteries is resolved and the technology can handle that, I don't know that we need to worry about it. But there will be some people that want to go after that power source. And for right now, I would encourage them to propane.
Yeah.
If they wanted an alternative to diesel or
Right.
gas. But even the big buses, most of them you can get with gas. And so it's just an efficiency for our weather and our climate. And we
Yeah.
have to keep focused on that because on the districts we serve, it's diesel big buses.
Right.
But we're putting 35,000 miles a year on them.
Yeah.
And we can't get a battery that's going to do that.
To do that,
we
no.
would send a diesel tow truck out to get it.
Right. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
not going to work. But there is little niches where it will work. And
Yeah.
I see that being on the smaller vehicles.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. And I think in the next 12 months, I think even less than that we're going to have a real answer out of DC coming from the EPA, Lee Zeldin, and what's really going to happen with these dollars that have been allocated. to the clean school bus program. Will it continue? Is it going to be a fraction of what it is? Sit back and watch here, but I think that's what a lot of people are doing.
Well,
I'm not doing anything until I know for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
But let's look back at history. And there was grants for doing the aftermarket, if you remember that.
Yep.
And there was grants for adding S-bar heaters.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been grants for adding cameras and to make the buses better than they are. I think, to your point, there'll be a fraction of something aimed at making our industry cleaner and better, but it has to be efficient, and like you and I have talked before, I think it has to be something that makes sense financially.
Yeah, because when you think about it, at the end of the day, what happens, the bus can cost X. We'll pay so much of that regardless, but then there's the chasm of who's going to make up this difference of $200,000. Right. And again, we haven't even touched the infrastructure piece yet. So we have to go back to the districts. We have to ask for X. The district, we don't have enough money for this. No matter what, we're going to have to raise our rates. It all goes back to the taxpayer at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, the taxpayer is going to have to pay for this one way or the other if it continues. So that's just the brass tacks of it. Yeah. That's the fact. There's no other way around it. No, appreciate your insight to that piece, Jason. Like I said, I'd like to ask everybody, where are you at with this piece? Something too, which is really having an effect nationwide, but it's going to hit here now in Minnesota too, but more of the ride sharing that's coming here, where we're seeing startup companies come in and really start almost, if you'd call it like an Uber service, where they're going to go direct to a student's home and pick them up in a van and drive them straight to school, probably replacing a lot of us as contractors that already provide that service. Another one that's coming in was EverDriven, has come out and said that they are going to start operations here in Minnesota as well. So thoughts on that the ride sharing piece of it. I know on a national level, we're having conversations about how does this fit? And I think it's important for everybody to remember that the safest way for a student to get to school is on a school bus. The yellow school bus is safe, but you're seeing a lot of these van services that are coming in, maybe not as well regulated. The safety features are not there like on a school bus. I don't know. I have some reservations about this encroachment, if you will, of these services.
Yeah. To put it out there, my wife and I made a decision that kids are safer in the bus going to school than they are riding with me. And I have a CDL, and they're safer than riding with my wife. Right. And I tried to get her into a CDL, but I didn't. So yeah, that the safety is where we have to remain focused. And if a business can come in and be safer than we are and prove it, then we need to be careful for that. Right. But if they can't, then, and it's known, then we just need to stand up for our positioning. Right. We go through so much onboarding and training, whether a staff member has a CDL or doesn't. There's hours and hours above and beyond the 40 that's required for the driver file. Yep. That we put into people to make the children safer than they are even riding with me. Yeah. So I appreciate that too. And you're right. It is. If as a parent, if you can make that decision, and if you can, always put them in a school bus. It's safe. It's where they need to be, and the stats back all that up. But it'll be interesting too with Governor Walz's proposal. Again, just a proposal, his budget that he's put out, that he's released. Within that, there's some numbers in there that are concerning to us in the industry. Some cuts that he's looking at in specialized transportation, the 5-10% over the course of the next few years. Very concerning. And then I look at but then there's these specialized Uber services coming in. They're not going to be cheaper than what we do it. That's just a fact. So again, in my mind, I'm trying to marry these. Like the governor wants to cut sped transportation costs. We continue to see an uptick in basically Uber type services. Again, not cheap, not safe. Just say that as well. So again, it's going to be interesting to see this intersection come together here in the next few months, what this looks like. What we do is very complex. Our routes don't have 5 stops. And so whether we're doing it with one of our own vans or we're doing it with one of our own buses, I think that the safety of the children, the inspection and the maintenance process of our vehicles, and the routing and that need to remain the top three focuses.
Right.
The companies that are coming in that have no experience, they need to uphold to the level that the industry is already asking.
Right.
And if they don't, there needs to be teeth behind that.
Yeah.
And if that would, I think, level the playing field is what you're asking, I think that's what we all want.
Yeah. Like I said, for me, I scratched my head a little bit on y'all as contractors really invest in the community that we are servicing. And we hire people, we put up buildings, a lot of infrastructure happens there, right? And
Right.
we pay those property taxes that go back again to the district. And then you have these companies just come in and they don't invest in the community like we do. And that's just a fact. And I agree with you. I don't think that they put safety number one. I'll just say that. I think they're there definitely for profit. Going back to where you started with Wayne and relationships. And again, I think we do that as contractors. We build relationships with our districts, right?
Yeah.
And we're there for 10, 20, 30 years. We started in St. Clair in 1974, and we still have that school district today that we partner with. So relationships and
50 year.
yeah, it's pretty amazing, but it comes with partnership.
Right.
And like I said, so I just look at it on that level of I think that you're going to see these companies come in and promise, and a lot of times they'll start cheaper, but we know what happens once the foot's in the door, then those prices are going to jump and escalate. But that's a model, and it happens, but they don't build a relationship. So we'll see where it goes. Like I said, I just find it interesting with the timing, again, with the governor's proposal. And again, I know it's just a proposal, but wanting to cut that special ed piece, and then all of a sudden we got these continuing growth of van services. And full disclosure, we run a lot of vans here. It's increased over the years. If I had a choice, I'd rather be in a yellow school bus, but a lot of times the student needs a van.
We would do the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think we've seen the state try to help us a little bit with those of us that are maintaining our vans well, take away that age requirement at 12 years. That was a big deal.
That was.
Partially because of the shortage.
Yeah.
And partially because if you're maintaining a vehicle, you can make it last longer than that.
Yep.
But the people that aren't can't be running older vans like that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a tough a tough one.
I've seen some up in the metro. I won't drop names, but I've seen some, and we probably all know who they are. And it's got a US DOT number in the window, and I don't think I'd let my dog ride in that thing, let alone they're transporting passengers. But I know the State Patrol will figure it out. So we'll let Lieutenant Rue do his job. Absolutely. Shifting gears here a little bit. Things, again, maybe at the MSBOA level that we're talking about, but wanted to ask you from your position at both the companies that you have hats for, how has ESST worked for you, the unemployment insurance? Are you seeing positives, negatives with either of those?
Summer school is an issue.
Okay.
And some of our shorter breaks where you can't make the requirement for being gone long enough have been an issue.
Thanksgiving break for that. Yeah. You're talking about the unemployment.
Yep.
Yep.
So it was crazy. My twins are washing buses for us.
It's good.
It's
for
good for
them.
them. I completely agree. Yeah. And Wayne told me all 4 of his kids wash buses. So
that's where you always start. You start in the wash
smile.
Bay. Yeah, start in the wash bay.
But they earn time, and that hadn't been a thing before.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a benefit to the employee level. It's a challenge for administration, whether you're a school district or a private contractor, just because you have to deal with the timing, and we have to deal with it the right way.
Right.
And I think Tom Revenue, for those who weren't at the winter conference, did a good job of trying to help us understand vacation time versus sick time.
Sick time, yeah.
And to have those distinct buckets different. So I took away from that, we're going to look at
doing that piece.
Yep.
Like that. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anybody's against either of those. I haven't heard anybody say that, but I would say there's definitely room for language to be added to both of those legislative pieces that came out of St. Paul the last couple of years. And with ESST, the earn safe and sick time, We had an instance not that long ago, just a few weeks ago, actually, at one of our sites where we had 5 employees call off one morning.
Oh, no.
And the management team did the best that they could in the circumstance. We're able to fill 3 of those routes really at a 6 a.m. time frame. 2 of them they just didn't have the horsepower to get it done. And
Yeah.
we ended up in the principal's office, so to speak, and not trying to make excuses, but say, hey, this is what happened. We only have so many people. And when you have 5 call and use ESST literally all at the same time on the same day, that's really difficult to get over. I don't know what can be done with that. I don't know if there's a carve out for essential services that need to be provided. Maybe it's a little bit tougher or stricter to call off at the last minute. I think about medical services. If someone's an ambulance driver and they're supposed to be on duty and they call in and use ESST.
How about a firefighter?
Yeah,
or a police officer?
Yeah. So again, I'm not asking for this to go away. I think that's a benefit for employees. That's not an issue, but I think there needs to be, hopefully somebody in St. Paul can look at this and go, hey, yeah, because they do that often. What they pass, hey, we got to redo this a little bit.
Yeah, we just need to work through the kinks.
Yeah.
The wording needs to get back to a part where the employee has the time to use it, but the employee also has the time to schedule it.
Yeah.
And when there just needs to be a better balance in that place, right? It's not a fire drill every time you want to use your personal time.
Right.
There's things that I go to the doctor for, just like you do, physicals and stuff like that. Those can all be scheduled. And I'm not going to call in to, hey, I'm going to my physical today.
Yeah.
Good luck, everyone.
6 a.m., right? Hey, your bus is supposed to be leaving in 20 minutes. But like I said, there just has to be, in my opinion, and hopefully somebody can look at it, just a little bit of tightening with that. And I think on the unemployment insurance,
that's a tough one.
It is tough. And my opinion, and I can look to Kathy here on my left, I think it's helped with retaining people. She gave me a nod of yes. So I think a positives come from that piece.
I would agree with that.
And I think the opposite side, though, is I think we have experienced, and we're not the only ones, that people said they're going to come back, and all of a sudden, September 1st, you find out that they moved to Wyoming, and they moved to Wyoming at the end of June. And they collected unemployment all summer with absolutely no intention of coming back whatsoever.
Right.
So maybe, again, that has to be looked at where I look at it as those are my tax dollars, and that person needs to pay that back. So hopefully the state can come up with something where when someone does unemployment, that there's a written agreement or something. I don't know what you'd call it. Yes, I do plan on coming back on September 5th to drive the school bus for Vision Transportation.
Right.
And if they don't, they got to pay. That's my 2 cents on that. So that's what I'd like to say.
I'd take it a step further. I'd ask that we figure out how to cover the funding for it, because we haven't even fully experienced our rating yet.
I know.
We guessed last year what we thought this year would be, to share that with the districts that we serve in our expenses.
Yeah.
And it's an educated guess, but there's an important word in that.
Yeah.
It's from a business perspective. I think that once we're all in it, I think it'll be easier to understand what those expenses are, but it needs to be parameters and governed so that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I think it's important too for our folks in St. Paul. I know the Superintendents Association does this, and some other great organizations, MREA, all those folks. I know that they're saying the same thing to folks in St. Paul, that every time you guys pass something like this, there's a cost to that. And for us in our position, what you're talking about, there's a pretty big financial impact to this, to the unemployment insurance, to the ESST. Right. We have to circle back the next time contract's up for renewal. And I think back in the days, it was always 2%, right? That's just what it was.
Yep,
you could go in,
3.
2 to 3%, spit in a handshake, right? Sign here, and contract negotiations were over in 10, 15 minutes.
Well, we hadn't had inflation for years.
Yeah, so it was a really cut and dry, and everybody knew what it was going to be. It's not the case anymore, right? The cost of buses has went through the roof. Wages are much higher than they've ever been. But legislation that continues to come out from either DC or for us here in St. Paul, that has an impact on the bottom line. So we have to go back to the district, and now we need a 15% increase. And again, I think it's just that step everybody has to take and go, hey, this has to come from somewhere. Before we pass this, we vote yay. What is the financial impact to all the stakeholders involved? So
Yeah,
I think sometimes there's a rush.
it is. And part of that would be the formula that's used to calculate what the schools are receiving. I'd go a step further to say hasn't been updated, and since we took dedicated funding away from transportation, it's made it harder on the teachers, it's made it harder on the superintendents and the business officials that all have to try to make that thing balance.
It's tough. So we'll kind of wind down here, but you just hit on something that I've asked a couple people. There used to be two pots, and I don't know if it has to go back to that, where there was the transportation pot, and then there was the education, the general pot.
Right.
But the districts knew, okay, that's what it was, and we knew that's what it was. And I don't know if it makes sense to go back to that. I don't know. And I think I talked to Garrett about this too, as well. I don't know. Maybe it makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. And you just sit down and you just continue to negotiate from the one. But I agree with you. I think there definitely needs to be some type of updating. Yeah, I don't probably remember the last time that was probably looked at, that formula.
Right.
Yeah, I don't either. We're just wheels in the cog, man. What do we know? It does. So again, as we're winding down here, any last things that you would like to share with our listeners, either from the Vision side or United Bus Sales side? Anything you want to share?
I just had a couple questions for you.
Okay.
To throw it your way.
All right, now I'm uncomfortable.
Okay. No, I was just wondering, you've worked with me in this industry for a long time, so what's one thing that you see that I'm doing for Vision and United in our industry that you think is good?
Oh, man, we could sit here for a while. I'm going to go back to what you said that you learned from Wayne, and it's relationships. And I know you, and I can call you a friend, but you are truly about relationships. And you and I, hold on a second. I still have a check here. It sits right here for $4,128.41. So we never cashed. And you know what this is about.
Yep.
And I didn't know you were going to ask this question. And this sits here, right? Because I told you that I'd keep that. You and I had to square things up from a business transaction, right? That happened several years ago. When was it? This is 10/11 of 22. The check is dated. You guys are probably wondering why it hasn't cashed yet, because it's sitting here in the window, but that's a direct reflection of relationship. Like you and I, like, hey, this happened. How do you want to square this up? And we did. And you're about that. And that makes me always want to do business with you. And that's really important. And I think that it is something, I know you have that with other folks too. And it's what's needed in our industry, that we're not against each other. We're all in this together and we're here to help. What do you need? And you emulate that.
And I appreciate the positive feedback, but I'd also like to know one thing that you think I can do better.
That's a good question. I don't think I really have I don't have anything critical. I just don't. And I don't mean it in a critical, but I know that you are honestly asking for that feedback. Jason, I really say I think you dot I's and cross T's across the board, and you're easy to work with. You always get back to me, and I'm sure you do your other customers as well. I really can't. Now, if maybe somebody else was sitting there and they asked me that, I could probably have rapid fire and ask them to take notes for the things I'm ready to say. I really don't. I really honestly don't have it.
I'd just encourage, if there is something that I'm asking the question because I want your listeners to know that I want to grow still.
Yeah.
I'm not done. And I'm very thankful for our relationship and our relationship to this industry.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would say keep doing what you're doing. I think the growth of United Bus is because of the work that you've done and the relationships that you have. And I would say if you keep doing what you're doing, that growth is going to continue to happen. And it's always about finding the right people. And I think you're really good at that. And I guess that would just be a word of encouragement. Keep finding the right people that you need on your team to have that customer service piece to the folks that sit on this side, right? That are needing the product and buying the product from you. Because again, it's all about relationship. I had the guys on from North Central, Paul and Chris, and I know you know
Great
them
guys.
and you have a great relationship with them. And I said this to them is it's not about, it is about buying the bus, right? Yes. But more importantly, it's what happens afterwards.
Yes.
And I need the service. I need that customer service that if something goes wrong, I'm going to be taken care of. And if that falters for me, this isn't going to work. And I've had to do that a couple times. It's not often, but I think a lot of times people are in business to make that sale. And
that's just the start.
Yeah, not to go down this road, but you look at Lion Electric, and I think we all heard there was a Lion just all in, and the Canadian government was all in on Lion, and there's a lot of subsidies and grants, and they just exploded, and they closed shop, a month ago?
Right.
And they're for sale on the market. So there you go. I don't know if United's interested in buying Lion Electric, but it wouldn't be a good business decision. I wouldn't say to do that, but
we wanted to be a dealer for them for the worst way, and then it looked where it ended, and I'm like, oh, thank you, Lord. Now I see.
Yeah, and I think there's some of it to say that they just, I don't know, and I don't see their financials by any means. None of us do, but I think it was too fast, too soon. They didn't have the customer service piece. And I remember talking to somebody here in Minnesota that had 2 Lions. Today, like here, they're not on route. It's too cold.
Right.
They're not leaving the shop. But afterwards, the buyers are more set in when they needed some work done. And there's no shop in Minnesota for Lion.
Right.
So they had to wait for somebody to come out of Canada. And you'd wait for someone to come out of Canada, and you'd wait for somebody to come out of Canada. So there wasn't that customer service piece on the other end. You guys have that.
Yeah, we won't lose that.
Yeah. So to me, that's the key, is that piece. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So the all-important question that everybody gets here at the Morning Route podcast is, as we all know, the morning route doesn't happen without coffee, right? Drivers don't leave until they've had 1, 2, 3 cups of coffee, and then, of course, one goes with them on the bus. But if you had the opportunity, Jason, sit down with one person and share a cup of coffee with them, ask them the questions that you've always wanted to ask, or get a piece of advice from that person. Like I said, just be able to share a cup of coffee and spend time with them. Who's that person for you?
That'd be Jesus.
Okay. I knew you were going to say that, but that's okay. That's a good pick.
Yeah. So obviously you're going to go for number 1.
Yeah.
But that'll happen on the other side of eternity. So maybe somebody that's around.
I have a question. I'll share it. But what's your number 1 question? If you could sit down with Jesus, what's your number 1?
Why did you create sin?
Okay.
Or why allow us? He didn't create that. He just allowed it.
A free choice.
Yeah, we have free choice. Why?
Otherwise, we wouldn't have free choice.
Yeah, that's but I mean, we could have all been angels, and we could have been.
I think he would have been bored with that. My degree in theology is kicking in. I have a degree in theology.
So ask him.
For me, is do dogs go to heaven? Because I want my dogs in heaven with me. I know it's simple, but that's the thing for a lot of people, and it's silly. I understand that, but I just think that there's some things that are just left to be unknown for us, and I'm okay with that. I've grown to be okay with that. Again, I have a degree in theology, so I like the study of religions and whatnot, but I do think, with Christianity, that we're not going to know until we're
later.
Supposed to know. But I really want to know if my puppies are going to be in heaven waiting for me. I sure hope so.
I hope so too.
Yeah. But that's it. Hey, man, Jason, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming down. Thanks for visiting with us today. If someone's needing a bus, how do they get a hold of you?
My cell phone, 612-251-8364. I'll direct who you could talk to. Or our website is always updated twice a week.
Okay.
And that's really helped a lot of people to be able to know that we're taking that seriously. And if they look online, it was updated on Tuesday or Thursday. That's www.unitedbussales.com.
Awesome. All right. Thank you to Vision Transportation for being an excellent provider of transportation for your districts. Your districts are well served by you guys. I know that. Thank you to United just for what you guys do for us here in Minnesota, taking care of us. Also being a vendor member for Minnesota School Bus Operators Association. So thank you to you guys for that as well. So you guys are great. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Stay up to date with the podcast by following us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe to the Morning Route Podcast YouTube channel.